a very lofty elevator pitch that I put to the lads recently, that it's Hearthstone meets Plants vs Zombies. Both of them were a little bit like, oh, you're running, you're selling it quite hard there. Hello.
Just going to stick my headphones on real quick. Hey y'all, I'm David.
Hiya, I'm Steph.
And we both are two of the main people working on Growbeard Defence. I come from, right now I live in Cambridge, although I used to live in London, where me and Steph actually met. And Steph, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Hemel Hempstead, which is in Hertfordshire.
No one knows where that is.
No, I don't live in Hampstead before you even think I live somewhere that posh.
But yeah, so we have been working on this game for some time now. We met a while back in Ubisoft, actually. I started my game career working on game design. I was working for Wizards of the Coast back in 2006, 2007, long before anyone can remember. And then after that, I worked for DNA doing free-to-play mobile games, card battle games. Then joined Ubisoft and started working on UI design because I had a bit more of an artistic and user-centric bent. And that's where I met Steph. And Steph, what were you doing before that in Ubisoft?
Well, I started off in the industry like so many humble folks of the London game scene at Sega in QA. The whole the door thing, but just get you used to working in interesting conditions. I moved around a bit and went to Ubisoft, where I moved into marketing, which is, as David said, is where we worked together, and we worked on Hungry Shark Evolution and Hungry Shark World. As I say, in marketing and customer support and PR and community. But since then, I've been with King, I've been with a publisher, I've done my own thing. And this is where we are now, back together again.
Steph and I have been fighting for a long time to make our own thing work on the side and fly off into the indie wilderness. But yeah, my most recent work's been at JagX. So we've had continued day jobs. And so, yeah, my latest stuff's been on RuneScape. But now it is Growbeard Defence all the way.
It's worth mentioning as well that this is actually a second title that we're working together as our team. Jolly Good Games, as you can tell, as a very British sounding person. That was my idea to call it that. But yes, we have already released a game in October 14th, 2019, which you may have seen, called Starbeard, which was our debut title and proof that we can work together without killing each other.
And remotely. We did it all remotely before people were being remote, which is pretty cool.
Yes, because we couldn't stand being in a room together. No, of course not. We had moderate success with that. And we had a lot of good featuring for that, a lot of good press. And we're really, really pleased with what we achieved. And that's why we're continuing to work on and make new things.
Should we jump into talking about how this...
We should start with the fact that none of us can grow beards, but we're still obsessed with making beard-related games.
It's true. I don't know why the beard thing became a big thing.
I think I know where the defense came. We're defensive about the fact we can't grow beards. So we're like, you know what? Let's make Growbeard Defence.
It's aspirational.
Absolutely.
But so, I mean, you and I, we were in a pub in Cambridge, and you were actually coming to interview for JagX. And specifically, Starbeard had just released at that point. And we were sitting there thinking about, okay, we need something to follow up with. Mm-hmm. And the initial press for Starbeard was quite good. We got a lot of attention from the press. And so it was very clear that like our general beardiness thing and the art and the general kind of small strategy bite-sized package that was Starbeard was resonating. And we were looking at, okay, well, as a studio, what could we improve on with Starbeard? What did we not get to do with Starbeard? And what do we want to do next? And then it was a very drunken conversation, so I don't remember the rest of it. But
I remember bits that we can't talk about because of NDA reasons. But I think we came to the realization that, honestly, I think the product that we made was received very well, but our timing and our monetization model just wasn't going to work on the mobile market at the time, because we released our game as a premium title, I think, the week after Apple Arcade came out?
2 weeks after.
So considering everything that was going against us in terms of the space we were going into, we still got a very good amount of featuring and support from Apple and from press at large. And we've built a very lovely little community that's pretty dedicated to jolly good games and are very keen to see what's following up. So there was a lot of learnings, as the positive side of me would say, where we kind of fell down a bit. But with a lot of learnings, that means you can take those and make your next product. And that's where you ask David, you're like, can you take something and make it into a beardy type thing? And he goes, I will do that. And that's where we are.
And then we made this. But I think with Starbeard was a match 3 game. It had a real sort of strategy twist to it. And the goal of Starbeard was really to try to take match 3, which is really quite accessible, and open it up to actually have that extra layer of strategy. That's the thing that I think we can do really well. And with Starbeard, I think we did it quite well. But in doing that, we actually made it a little less accessible. It actually became quite difficult for people to engage with it. Real strategy geeks really jumped into it, but people who actually, the main market that I wanted, which was your average Joe who's just out there downloading mobile games here and there, I wanted to reach them and show them that, look, a game, you can bite into a game like this and it'll reward you for biting into it and it'll stick in your head. And with Growbeard Defense, it was really a matter of, okay, wait, so we overcomplicated things in Starbeard. So right now, what do I want to do? I want to take the core interesting strategy moments that we captured in Starbeard, and I want to make them really easy to access. Like I want people to be able to grab that stuff easily. And that's kind of how we stumbled on a card game. I think there's a lot of card games out there that are much too complex and complicated. And Growbeard Defense is us looking at that and saying, great, what in fact does a card really need to represent? Like everybody loves cards. Kids play cards when they're playing Uno when they're young. They're playing all sorts of card games with their family.
I don't think there's anyone that hasn't had a got need moment from their childhood, whether it's football stickers or Pokemon cards. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Pokemon cards. There you go. I mean, everybody does that. And the rule sets around these cards are actually generally quite simple. Then you look at like Slay the Spire, Hearthstone, all these games, and there's these quite complex systems which essentially are gating people from getting to enjoy the tasty strategy goodness. So with Growbeard Defense, we really, one of the core tenets was, first of all, I want to make this actually accessible. I want people to be able to start playing it and just be able to figure it out on the fly and not feel like they're getting smacked down in competition, not feel like they're getting destroyed by a bunch of rules that are totally confusing to them. And then the other piece of it was specifically that I really am I'm kind of always thinking about agency. I'm thinking about, well, when a player is playing the game, how can they express themselves? And in Starbeard, we ended up actually kind of reducing the space because we had a limited number of ways that you could play the game. And card games allow you to express yourself in tons of ways through gameplay mechanics. And for me, that's always been an obsession. So I kind of at a certain point said, I kind of want to make a card game.
You've missed your other secret obsession, which is games that involve tiles. If there's no tiles in the game, it's not happening.
I mean, I don't know. Everybody's played Zelda, you know. I mean, everybody secretly loves tiles. They just maybe aren't aware of it as I am. But yeah.
Talk about Growbeard specifically. A very lofty elevator pitch that I put to the lads recently, that it's Hearthstone meets Plants vs. Zombies. Both of them were a little bit like, oh, you're running, you're selling it quite hard there, but that's what we're going for, because we got card-based deck building, and it's tower defense, but not your conventional tower defense with active. It's a more passive battle system, but it has a very compelling theme. For those that have played Starbeard, you may recall that the gnomes were wiping out all of the bugs because, you know, they were pests and they were destroying the planet by being evil. I wrote the story and I can barely even remember it.
It was a really big part of the game.
Yeah, it's compelling. In Growbeard Defence, the gnomes have now realised that perhaps wiping out all the bugs was not a good idea because there's no pollination happening and all of the planets are withering and dying because they've got no plants. They've got no bumblebees. Everybody loves a bumblebee. And they're not able to pollinate. So it's turned on its head a little bit. So they're now teaming up with plants to take out these slimes that are wiping out these negative pests in order to save the universe, which is loosely based on reality.
There's a slight environment.
Slimes are like big corporations, I guess.
There's all these nasty sludges that are getting dropped everywhere by these huge factories that are being that have been built by some of the more successful Starbeards from the last game.
There's Jeff Bezos. We're not releasing on Amazon, by the
way. Yeah, I think the one of the core things here is that at the end of the day, you have a basic tower defense layout. There's a path, and there's this nasty sludge path that's coming down. You're playing cards around it that are basically your towers, and you're buffing them up and upgrading them. And it's a turn-based game, so it encourages you to slow down, think about what's going on. And everything you're playing down is damaging these enemies, and it's building up slowly. And a lot of it was inspired from games like Plants vs. Zombies. I think Plants vs. Zombies is one of the seminal big projects that actually was a big accessible strategy game that actually opened up strategy to the wider market and 100%. Got so many people who weren't usually gamers playing it. And suddenly they were all like, whoa, I love it because I get to think about the game all the time and I can actually engage with how the game works. And
it's funny you should say that because one of my friends literally hasn't played a game since she played WoW when she was about 19, and she's stuck in Poland at the moment because of lockdown, and the only thing she said is like, I want to try a new game, and I gave her Plants vs. Zombies and she completed it in 3 days, and she hadn't played anything since WoW. She's like, this is really good. And it's like strange because she's not a gamer, but she just picked it up, and that's something that we really want to emanate.
Yeah, I think when you take the pieces and you make the pieces simple, and then as people are placing the pieces down, more and more interesting things start to happen. And it's not punishing you. It's just saying, no, explore, see what happens. That I think is this recipe for this golden moment where the person goes and they have that quick toilet break where they get to sit and play the game. They learn something about the game in that toilet break, and then they go off and they're just thinking about, okay, when's the next time I can get back to that toilet break? And especially in lockdown, it's like, we don't have anything to give us that little bit of escapism in these little tiny moments. And I think a game like Plants vs. Zombies and that type of just light strategy game is just optimized for that. So with Growbeard Defense, we're trying to have a similar system there, but then actually really enrich that card system so that you can express yourself in lots of ways. In Plants vs. Zombies, you can't really express yourself in a very wide range of ways. There's not much to talk about with Plants vs. Zombies after you played other than the really quirky craziness of it. Versus you think about Slay the Spy or some of these games that are more deck builders and things, there's a narrative to the gameplay and people walk away and want to talk about it, want to tell people about it. And so we're trying to combine that with that accessibility of a Plants vs. Zombies style strategy game. So yeah.
Okay, well, I think everyone's had enough of you talking, David. So why don't we look at some fantastic gameplay that I recorded over the weekend? Yeah, I mean, that's literally why we work together, I think. I think it's probably worth mentioning as well, this is a pre-alpha, very early prototype of the game. So what you're seeing here is obviously not a reflection of the finished product. We just had a bit of funding to get us to this point. So we had a proof of concept and we've been fleshing it out together with art, animation, and our lovely coder who's not with us today.
So yeah, this is our opening level right now. So what you're seeing is there's this big sludge path down the middle, which is these nasty toxins that have kind of wasted all the gardens of this world. There's a big canister at the top that's dumping this sludge down. And in this sludge, there is essentially pollution incarnate. So there's these little sludgelings, which are those little blue creatures. And they're coming down. And this Starbeard has showed up. And our little yellow guy down there, that's Tuck. He's actually originally from Starbeard. So all the Starbeard gnomes are showing up in this. And so Tuck has shown up. He's seeing all these gardens getting destroyed. And now he's going to try to replant all of them. And these little sludgelings are off to stop him. So Tuck slams into the middle of that sludge path, starts planting stuff, and those sludgelings come along saying, hey, no way. So that's the basic storyline of what's going on in each battle is you've got your Starbeard down there who's trying to stop this advance of these little sludgelings. And if you can get rid of all of them and grow this little garden along the way, then he can slowly bring joy and happiness back to the world. So a bit onto the actual mechanics themselves. So it's fairly straightforward stuff if you played any deck building or card game. 2
stars.
You won that level.
First level. Yeah. 2 stars in the first level. Dreadful.
Steph, you have to review.
I never played this game before. Sorry.
But so the core of it is that you've got the you got your cards down at the bottom. They have a cost, just like mana cost or anything. And on a given turn, you can go and play them out. So here, Steph's played. There's Spike, who's the little cactus. She's played Spike down in the middle there in that big C shape of the path, which is a good spot because now Spike, like in any tower defense game, you put somebody in a little crook of a path and they can go and hit lots of enemies. So that's a good strategic move. And then she's playing things like down there, you've got a watering can card and you've got a watering card. If you play those on your plants and your cactuses, they all get buffed up and do more damage.
And like in real life, I'm not overwatering these succulents because all of my succulents are dead in real life. They're just rotten and grey because I just keep watering them every day. But in this case, it actually helps. So
yes,
some learnings from real life here.
Yes, you can't overwater the succulents. But you can see there's some bigger enemies showing up, some of these big, heavier sludgelings. They've got more health and are harder to deal with. There, she just stuck a little pot. So that little white graphic that she stuck on there, that little...
placeholder asset?
Yes. That is an old pot. And so Tuck is a gardener, and he can stick down pots on the path to slow down the enemies and give your little plants more time to smash them. Other things are, as you're killing enemies, you've got all sorts of special powers. So Tuck, he's got this pan smash ability, which is down in the lower left. That's that big flaming blue thing.
Going Super Saiyan in the corner there. Yeah.
Yes, we're saying, please test me.
Yeah, I kept forgetting that we had it.
Actually, in playtesting, people do forget it's there just because it's so loud all the time. People stop looking at it. But that thing, so like if you drag that out, it's a little bit like powers in Hearthstone. So you can drag that out and it'll put a big explosion down and hit a bunch of the enemies. And you charge that up by killing enemies. So you're essentially each turn you're gathering up pollen, playing your stuff out. Then everything you discard your hand at the end of your turn. It's like a deck builder sort of roguelike sort of system, like Slay the Spire. And then here you can see Steph's picking a card in between levels right now. We're going to have an actual meta game where you're going through a map and there's all sorts of cool stuff going on.
Here's more placeholder assets.
This is a very placeholder screen. So you can upgrade your cards, which is pretty cool. So you can go, if you've played Monster Train, I basically became obsessed with this system. So this is our take on that. And it's just a really nice way of, you've got a deck of cards, and if you can just keep upgrading the cards and choosing which upgrades, you can take a card and make it more powerful in one way, or you can make it more powerful in a different way. It gives you more ways to express yourself. And this kind of is a key thing that I keep coming back to, is I want players to be able to really put their personality in their deck and think about, how do I want to go about defeating all these nasty sludgelings? Yeah, you can see little things like that little coin flower sitting there. You don't want that to die. It's sitting in the sludge. It's very sad.
I'm afraid you're about to be very disappointed in me, David.
Unfortunately, Steph didn't protect the coin flower. Oh, God. So that coin flower would have survived, but,
if I'd been better.
So there, Steph played a bee. Bees are pretty exciting. They make extra pollen for you. And yeah, so the game's going to follow very much a roguelike deck builder system, if you play those sorts of games. Bottom line being that the game will randomize itself every time you play. If your Starbeard actually dies, when the little guys get to the bottom, they bash on your Starbeard. There's some enemies that shoot at your Starbeard. There's lots of ways for them to get into trouble. And if they actually get knocked out, then you have to start all over again. But things change every time, and you get new exciting systems and cards added into the game to kind of keep rewarding you to come back. But it's very fresh because it's a whole new set of enemies, whole new level sets every time. And so right now, as you can see in this prototype, it's just a string of levels with upgrading opportunities in between and moments to get new cards and customize your deck and take cards out. But we're going to have an actual system where you're essentially climbing up these sludgy, nasty mountains full of industrial garbage and things, and you're going and trying to slowly seed it with beautiful gardens and get up to the top. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a shame that the enemy's just gone off the screen. Well, we'll see him in a minute. But the little blue slime guy, I've had a couple of comments of people saying he looks like an evil Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle from Studio Ghibli. And it's not the only comment. Evil Calcifer. I do love Calcifer, even though he makes your bacon burn. But you can see we have quite an interesting art style that we've carried on through from Starbeard, because it was one of the things that really resonated with people. And we've got our little cacti animating there, but we've actually got
I think we might want to bring in our artist if we're going to talk about this kick butt art of his.
I love the fact the cat just walked past as if she was the artist.
Hey, John.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, John.
Himself.
Oh, wow. I thought
What are you
someone was
doing?
knocking at the door.
John Lamb. This is the man himself who's made all of this beautiful stuff you've been seeing here.
So yeah, my name's Jonathan Lamb, and I'm the game artist for Growbeard Defence. Previously, I worked on various companies as a graphic designer, and I also worked on created some online tutorials on platforms like Envato, Tuts Plus, Pluralsight, Udemy, and Skillshare. And then I finally branched out into video games as an artist for a little Kickstarter funded game, which was also a card game called Eminent Standards Tales, which was a fantasy card game based on Triple Triad. And now I'm currently working in a Ubisoft studio where I met both David and Steph in the marketing department, working on Hungry Shark Evo and Hungry Shark World.
And Little Raiders, but...
Oh, yeah. No one remembers that.
Yeah, poor Little Raiders. That was a lovely little game.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
me, Steph, and John were sitting next to each other for a long time at Ubisoft, planning our kind of putting our little... Yeah, exactly. Planning how we're going to get out of there and kind of, make it in the big world for some time. So, hey, so John, since we have you here, you've got all this fancy art on your machine. How about we bring some of it up and we can just kind of go down memory lane and just chit chat about it a little bit? Because I think everybody loves your stuff so much. We can also look at like my really stupid drawings that started the thing that I showed you and said, didn't make this pretty.
Your stuff as well, yeah. Stuff from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to defend myself. So
I mean, that's what those napkins on every drunken night out was for, right? Concept art.
I mean,
there it is.
Oh, there it is in all its glory. Right. Okay. Well, this is about John, but let me get my stuff out of the way here. I started sketching stuff. I mean, when I was coming up with the concepts, this was years ago when I was building the world and thinking about mechanically, how could I build a card game around this system? And these little characters were meant to fit in tiles. So I wanted squashed characters that could look good. And I was thinking a lot about I wanted them to have lots of different genres that could exist. So characters from lots of different fantasies and science fiction and Westerns and all sorts of things. But I wanted them to just be nice, compact little guys who would look good as tiles moving around a board, because every game that I make is a tile-based game. So these guys were essentially me trying to do that, create squished little characters that still could read.
I still like that little guy. This guy I like the Starbeard gnome. Starbeard, yeah.
Yeah.
I posted him on Twitter and everyone was like, right.
But this is the magic. So this is the magic of John. I showed John this. I was like, John, look how cool this is. And he looked at it and he was like, I can see what you were going for. I'm gonna make it work. I still think this guy's pretty iconic. He's the one where we essentially made the logo from, exactly. So so it's a very collaborative process. Definitely, it's a lot of you and me yelling at each other.
The logo still had ears as well. He was that close to that original one.
Yeah.
He did.
These are the guys where we started going back and forth with your sketches and just trying to combine your style with some vector graphics and just trying to get something a little bit more polished, something that we could actually start to put inside the game, right?
Yeah, this is where we really wanted to think about what might these things actually look like, which I think you nailed it pretty quick. With that A version was kind of your first pass at looking at my stuff and being like, well, here's something that could work as a commercial product. And I remember looking at it and being like, yeah, that'll work.
And then just basically going through with the team, with Steph and everyone as well, just getting everyone's input on it and seeing what worked, what didn't work, and then just moving from there, just drawing more gnomes, basically.
Yeah.
This.
That nightmare that just came up.
Focus on this one, John.
Part of the portal that we came up with. So we were trying to come up with a style that could combine both 2D and 3D. And this portal was one of the 3D assets which we used to sort of help the gnomes sort of travel from to different planets. Something like that. Wasn't it something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally that at the end of each planet, because there was 4 planets in Starbid, they had to use that to travel from one level to another, because we didn't want to do a spaceship.
With Growbeard Defense, we're like, one thing we never quite figured out with Starbid is how to like really make use of all your beautiful 3D stuff. So I think now we're trying to figure out, okay, we have all these beautiful portals and things that you've been working on. It's like, let's get it as a focus of the game where you can travel through these things and see them up close. This dude, this is Shovelbeard. This was me being like, okay, they're gardening. So these gnomes, if they're like gardeners and they're also gnomes and they're also fighting and battling their way against nasty things that are all sludgy and stuff, they'd probably be all armored up and they probably would use gardening materials. So that thing that is kind of a big sword spade on the left, that was me thinking about that.
I still like that idea.
Yeah.
I think the big difference you see from concept to current is we were going for a very mature look originally, and we sort of made it much more accessible with John's art. It's a bit more colourful and vibrant and, as I say, more accessible. Some of these guys look a little bit threatening to me. I don't know if that's because I'm delicate or what. But,
yeah, it was more hardcore.
There we go.
So here are some of the gnomes. These are the final designs that we all came up with. Just trying to, everyone in the team pitching in ideas and pinning down things like what the core of the character is, establishing each of their personalities, what sort of weapons they'd be using. And also we came up with 3 different types of colors as well. So we had like blue, yellow, purple, and which each sort of represented a way a certain character could be played, which also determined the way they might look, what sort of body type they are as well. Like I think we came up with like the yellow guys would be the more tankier, stronger people. The blue ones would be the sort of DPS style characters like the rogue or the warrior. And then the purple characters would be more like magic users or like mages.
Ranged, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And you can kind of see
the original 3.
Yeah, these are the original ones. I think the thing to note is like we started with kind of the standard RPG tropes, and I think now in Growbeard what we're looking at is like the yellow. The yellow is like the sun characters for all to do with making sure all the plants get enough sun, and they're big, heavy hench characters. Then the blue are a bit more weedy, and they're more water characters, a bit more mysterious. And the purple are fungus characters, which are just totally wacky wizards and mages who eat all sorts of funky mushrooms and things like that.
I don't remember writing that bit of the story.
So everyone comes up with like loads and loads of different ideas. Like we always have this, like every now and then we'd go on Slack and someone would say, oh yeah, wouldn't it be cool to have like a ninja gnome or a samurai gnome? And then I just try and jot it all down and remember it for next time, and then just go through each of these ideas one by one. And that's how we come up with some of these characters.
I think it's amazing that the samurai gnome is by far and large like the most coolest looking gnome, and it happens to be called John.
Yes.
Who decided that?
Not me.
It is nice having John around where you can write something on Slack and say, oh, I think a samurai gnome would be cool. And then a day later, he's like, here's a cool samurai gnome.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are the enemy characters. So with Growbeard Defense, I think we wanted to bring more of an environmental theme to the forefront of the game. So these enemies, I think, were represented essentially by sort of, like you said, reanimated toxic waste, sort of sludgy characters. So we wanted to represent the enemies as some sort of pollution that you were trying to defend against, hence why the path that the enemies walk on is represented by that purple toxic slime. And here we've got the plant characters. So unlike the gnomes, creating the plant characters was a bit more of a struggle because of the nature of the garden theme, and because our game is a tower defense. Obviously, one of the first things that comes to mind is Plants vs Zombies, which is obviously a massive inspiration for us. And they have like a massive roster of really imaginative and cool plant characters. So although that is our inspiration, we really wanted to try and differentiate ourselves visually from that, and we wanted to try and focus on what other elements made our game unique, such as the gameplay, how the plant towers interact with the enemies in different directions. And so with the art style, we try to reflect that. So with these cactuses, some of them, they've got like this one, they've got a laser eye. Depending on what sorts of gameplay decision we've made for these characters, and also we've planted them in these sort of tower pots as well, which look like towers. And you'll see a lot of them are cactuses. So we settled on cactuses because structurally they look kind of like towers themselves, I think.
All the sun characters right now, so all the yellow guys, they're all about sort of the desert and the dry spaces. So they're all cactuses, and all their cards are cactuses largely.
And also because of lockdown, my girlfriend has also been doing a lot of planting, and she told me cactuses are particularly strong and easy to look after. But that was also a strong source of inspiration too.
Life hacks for lockdown with John Lamb.
Yeah, absolutely. Need to make some little costumes for your succulents. Cosplaying cacti. Oh, I love this one.
So the space pyramid concept was an idea for the different worlds that the gnomes could travel to using their space portals, and we wanted to give each of these a specific feel and color scheme, like sort of for each of our levels. And I think for us, we were really inspired by a lot of old school games that we played as kids, like the different zones Mario would travel to, like the ice world, the pyramid world, the sea world, things like that. So in our game, we've got something similar. Like we've got this pyramid world, we've got the garden, the standard garden world, and we're going to have ice worlds and things like that as well. So that's what this concept is.
So yeah, we got all the super beautiful art here. I think maybe now we got John here, we can go back into the game a bit and talk a little bit about
see the art in action, eh?
The ins and outs.
Well, there he is. Look at that boy go.
So this is so we got to be clear. So I made the initial design for the game. Steph kind of wrapped it in a world. And then it was like, hey, John, here's this some ugly ideas that I put together and wireframed. And then John goes, oh, yeah, okay, here's a bunch of beautiful art. And this is your first attempt. This is you just being great, here's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Don't see yourself short, man. Your art is pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, I mean,
if it wasn't for your initial concepts, I wouldn't have been able to come up with this stuff. It's a collaborative work. We're all collaborating to make the art beautiful.
You're completely ignoring all of my sketches. I terrible things. I do some terrible things like, this is what I need it to be. I don't know what this is, man.
Steph, you're the most important one. Your sketches are the most important ones.
Yeah, because they're the worst. They give you so much, it's like a canvas. You could just go crazy because what I give you is just nothing.
But yeah, I think you can see there's a lot of placeholder stuff we have in here, but I think the little animating cactuses right now, that is a pretty good indicator of where we want this to go.
Yeah, the cacti were the first ones to go to Matilda, our animator. So that's where they look lovely and juicy, and all the other guys haven't had a chance to be animated yet. So that's why they're just sort of sitting there waiting to die.
Oh, but if you're a card game lover, if you love deck builders or card games like Hearthstone and stuff, you can see the little guy with the white mask who's got a little shield next to him. So he's armored, so he's pretty hard to take care of, but you've got cards that can do piercing damage. So there's basic stuff like that anyone who plays these sorts of card games will probably grasp pretty quickly. But I think at the core of it, one thing that this game adds to card games in general and tower defense is that there's a very free-flowing sense of space in the game where you can kind of set things up to have a cluster of towers in certain areas, and you can use lots of cards to, in very interesting ways, buff stuff up. But where you position things really matters. And you can probably eke by in a lot of the levels, but if you want to do really well and get really great rewards, you really need to think about where you're placing things. So the cards themselves are pretty simple, but where you actually place them ends up, you kind of learn that, oh, actually, if I place it up here, it's way more effective than if I place it down here.
One of the greatest things that I enjoy when you get into about level 9 or 10 and you spend a lot of time augmenting your particular cards and you get a path, which is just like, as David said, like a little bundle, and you've got like these 4 cacti all ready to go, and then these enemies are coming through, and then you use like a couple of watering cans on there, and they're suddenly all doing like 20 damage. And you just watch these guys sliding through and just getting obliterated, and you're like, yes, this is the corner of death that I've created for you here.
Yes.
Very satisfying.
I think it's super important to have that, especially in a mobile game and these little moments, is you need to have the drama ramp up. And in this game, each individual battle essentially has you planting very basic stuff and then upgrading it just over the course of a 2 to 3 minute battle. And by the end of it, you're doing crazy damage and crazy attacks. But of course, the enemies are getting more impressive too as the battle goes on. So if you're not doing it too cleverly, you can get caught out. But you want that drama in a game like this. And the stuff, I think you're not going to lose that heart.
I do.
That's all the time we have, I think. So if we close down shop, I think we were really honored to actually be part of the London Games Festival. We're super excited. So thanks so much for making this a possibility to have us on here bantering about. You've been looking at Growbeard Defence. It's our next big title. It's going to be great. If you love Plants vs. Zombies, if you love roguelikes like Slay the Spire, if you just love strategy games in general, you're going to love this. Steph, you want to tell them a little bit about our plans for the future?
Yeah. So we're looking to bring the game out next year for a full launch, hopefully bring it to soft launch before the end of the year. But if you want to stay on track with us, we have a Discord for Jolly Good Games, which you can find the link on our other social media, not to get you to follow us on everything, but we have Growbeard Game on Twitter and on Facebook, and we have Jolly Good Games on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and you can check out our previous game Starbid on Apple and on Google Play, and let us know what you think.
Play Starbeard, see John's pretty art. It's
more of the same. We absolutely, as David said, we absolutely appreciate this opportunity, and it's just great to be able to show our baby to you.